The statement issued by President of France Emmanuel Macron, indicating that French troops could indeed make an appearance on the territory of Ukraine, has once again sparked vibrant political discussions in both Ukraine and Western countries. The President of France is currently discussing the conditions under which he may potentially consider the possibility of sending troops in the future. The initial prerequisite is the breakthrough of the Ukrainian front achieved by the troops of Russia. And the second condition is the request made by Kyiv for this type of military assistance, seeking such support from the international community. Certainly, it is still very early to have a conversation about whether these conditions truly exist or not at this point in time. In addition, it is anticipated that such conditions will not arise, and it is hoped that the defense front of Ukraine will remain unbreached by Russian troops, ensuring the security and stability of the region. Nevertheless, the statement delivered by the President of France is a crucial and noteworthy signal for both Russia and the Western nations. No individual should depend on the Ukrainian state being liquidated or completely dismantled by the presence of Russian troops on its territory, and that its territory will be annexed to the Russian Federation in contravention of international law. In reality, this should be the main thesis and primary argument of responsible politicians from Western countries in the ongoing war waged by Russia against Ukraine. It is worth reminding that the Russian Federation does not have any legal right to conduct military actions on the territory of Ukraine, even if we suppose that Russia is relying on its own constitutional right and that its constitution incorporates the occupied Ukrainian regions as subjects of the Russian Federation. It is of utmost importance to understand by what right Russia is conducting military actions on the sovereign territory of Ukraine, considering the implications and potential violations of international law that such actions may entail. On what basis did President of Russia Vladimir Putin declare the so-called special operation on the territory of Ukraine, and by what right did he claim authority for this action? During the military standoff between the Russian Federation and the Chechen Republic, when was such a mechanism employed by the involved parties? In the Kremlin, they could explain this by saying that it concerns a subject of the Russian Federation. But Ukraine is not a subject of the Russian Federation. It is a sovereign state. Russia does not possess the right to conduct military actions on the territory of Ukraine, demolishing its military objects and infrastructure in the process. Furthermore, these arguments cannot be regarded as credible in a scenario where Russia is not even contemplating the possibility of declaring war on Ukraine at the present moment in time. And thus, the only logical explanation for Russia conducting its special military operation on the territory of Ukraine, while the Western countries perceive this operation as military actions, can be only one plausible explanation that aligns with the available evidence and geopolitical context. Ukraine is commonly acknowledged as a nation with a degree of sovereignty that is somewhat limited. Even 3 decades after the dissolution of the Soviet Union, the former republics of the Soviet Union are still perceived as states with restricted sovereignty, and Russia remains to be regarded as the only country that is the immediate successor of the Soviet Union and the Russian Empire. This argument should be rejected by the civilized global community. Both Russia and Ukraine are independent and sovereign states of equal status in the international arena. Russia does not possess the legitimate authority to deploy its military forces and carry out bombardments on the territory of Ukraine. And Western nations, in turn, have every legitimate right to provide assistance to Ukraine, which is bravely and actively resisting this act of aggression. Therefore, the notion that the military forces of one or several Western countries will enter the territory of Ukraine with the purpose of assisting its population in preserving sovereignty can be seen as a logical and natural response to the aggressive actions of Vladimir Putin, the President of Russia, and is a sentiment that is widely held among many observers and analysts. The identical, logical, and natural response from Western nations should be to concur that the weapons they provide to Ukraine could potentially be utilized on the sovereign territory of the Russian Federation in order to annihilate Russian military objectives. In recent times, this has been openly discussed. The statement regarding the United Kingdom's agreement to utilize its weapons for conducting strikes on the territory of the Russian Federation was made by Lord David Cameron, the Foreign Minister of the United Kingdom. An inherent solution to the situation arises naturally. Because if we envision that Russia's conflict with Ukraine could solely occur on Ukrainian sovereign territory, and both the Western countries and Russia concur with this sequence of occurrences, it indicates that the conflict could persist indefinitely, without any resolution in sight, leading to a prolonged state of uncertainty and instability in the region, with no end in sight for the ongoing war. There is no political solution to end this war. It simply does not exist because the Russian political leadership led by President Vladimir Putin is not risking anything during this war. The Russian political leadership may opt to persist with its experiment of occupying territories in Ukraine despite international condemnation. And simultaneously, the Kremlin is confident that there will be no significant repercussions for Russia itself, its sovereign territory, its citizens, or its military installations. We have witnessed firsthand how Moscow reacts with intense pain and distress to the devastating impact of drone strikes on Russian oil refineries. We have observed how Moscow reacts with great sensitivity to strikes on military targets within the Russian Federation, especially in the Belgorod region. This signifies that in the Kremlin, they truly do not wish to allow a scenario where strikes are carried out on the sovereign territory of Russia, as it would be a grave threat to their sovereignty and national security concerns. Throughout this process, Russia will face a substantial reduction in its military potential and will lack the chance for a speedy restoration of its capabilities. This is a scenario where even the establishment of the military-industrial complex will not assist Russia in attaining a straightforward triumph, as all the capabilities of this military-industrial complex will, in turn, be annihilated by Ukrainian attacks. Thus, within the system that is designed to lead to the conclusion of the war against Ukraine, two crucial theses must be considered. It is imperative to acknowledge these key points within the framework of the system intended to bring about an end to the conflict and restore peace in Ukraine. The possibility of troops from NATO member countries being present on the territory of Ukraine, and the possibility of strikes with weapons from Western countries on the territory of Russia. Both of these arguments will help kickstart the diplomatic track to solve the issue of the war between Russia and Ukraine and compel the Kremlin to abandon further aggression. Thank you, friends. Stay on this channel, subscribe to it. Stay on this channel, subscribe to it. Use the opportunities to support this project.